Welcome to the MapDeck Turbo Training Studio. Now, if you've not seen these videos from this room before, what you know is the screen behind me is sort of the data collection point from all the turbo trainers sort of behind the camera. So behind here, there's a whole bunch of Tax Neo turbo trainers and athletes come in here, put their bikes up, and all of their data comes up on this screen, and we do the workouts together, and we actually do them with these little muscle oxygen sensors. Now, we've talked about these quite a lot before. This is a Moxie sensor. If we kind of put it onto your leg, underneath your cycling shorts, and what this gives us is the saturation of muscle oxygen in the working muscle, so wherever that sensor is. It's an absolutely incredible tool. One easy way of thinking about it is the reason that you're accumulating lactate is because you're consuming oxygen, and the graphs that we see behind us in a second, the best way of describing it is almost seeing the opposite of lactate accumulation is by seeing the rate of oxygen desaturation. So it's not entirely accurate, but it's a good way to try and picture it. Now, once the class gets started, we always do a warm-up. In fact, the workout behind you is actually one that I put on a YouTube short a little while ago, and this is actually the results from it. I'm going to show you rider A and rider B so we can kind of see what it is that we learn from this amazing technology. Now, the workout always starts with a freestyle warm-up in my class, and the reason we do that is because most of the athletes down here now have developed their own warm-up strategies. They know how to gradually increase that resistance, throw in a few high cadence spins. Some of them like to do a few slow cadence things. Everyone's got their own little magic formula, if you like, for doing a warm-up. And because we're using the Moxies, we can see visually what effect that has. Now, when you come into a class, what you'll find is that your muscle oxygen levels will be reading around 50% for most people. And that makes sense. So you're being at a state of rest, homeostasis, oxygen in, carbon dioxide out is probably about equal. What you're about to do is you're about to start doing some exercise, even though it's very light exercise, and your body will want to take oxygen from the easiest place possible, which is what it has stored in the muscle that you're using. So this is what we see on these graphs. We see the muscle oxygen start to what we call desaturate on both athletes. And then what happens is your heart rate will respond. We know this when we do exercise, our heart rate elevates and our respiratory rate elevates. And as it does so, that's your body signal to try and replenish that oxygen debt, if you like. But in a warm-up, we're normally trying to keep pushing on harder and harder and harder and keep reducing that oxygen debt. And then, of course, we stop, we have a little rest, and then we get this big spike as we take on a recovery because, of course, your heart rate is elevated, your respiratory rate is elevated, and now we have the opportunity to flood your muscles with lots and lots of oxygen, and hopefully they will store it, which is exactly what we see here. After these warm-ups, we start seeing this big reaction to a big accumulation of oxygen, and we go, yep, we are ready for a good quality workout. Okay, so the workout that we did, this little part here was an experiment on high cadence stuff, just to get the idea of the gears and a bit more of an extended warm-up. The main set then was this section here, so 1, 2, 3, and 4 minute intervals. And the purpose of this workout was to try and pace the effort so that your absolute best effort, you know, the crest in the hill, the absolutely can't turn my pedal, one more stroke happened in the last few seconds here. Now, these are a minute rest in between, which is just enough so that you're actually going to encourage your body into a VO2 max state rather than a heavy lactate sort of sweet spot state. This rest is just enough to allow the heart rate to come down, a little bit of recovery to happen, and then push on again. It makes all the difference. Okay, this is rider B. Now, rider B has quite a slow rate of oxygen saturation. In fact, they probably went a little bit too hard in the 3 minute block. But here in the 4 minute block, you can see how they paced the effort really well and gradually kept bringing down that muscle oxygen until they hit their minimums. And of course, at the end, they were really exhausted, really pushing hard. So heart rate was super high and we get this dramatic resaturation effect. So this is quite a slow desaturation effect. Rider A here, complete and utter opposite. Very rapid desaturation, but also desaturates to a very low level. So as the interval comes on, they come right the way down to like 9%, very low, and they suffer that out. Of course, come back a big recovery, and this is the big long set here. almost straight away, second the load comes on, down to 9%, and then just sort of suffers it out. The feedback from rider A is that legs are really burning and hurting. You know, it felt like a really, really hard effort. Rider B, exactly the same, really putting in the same rate of perceived effort, but was able to maintain some sort of oxygen saturation in their muscles. Now, rider A, fantastic. If you need to launch big, strong, powerful efforts for a short amount of time, this is great. This athlete has actually developed a way of what we call lactate tolerance. Over the years, developed a tolerance for that big accumulation of lactate. This athlete is probably more suited to big, long endurance rides, gravel riding, that sort of thing, or big alpine passes. This is what we're trying to get to. Now, the absolute beauty of what we do down here is that everybody trains together, everybody can see everyone's graphs, and you build up this insanely clear picture of how your body is working in certain situations, but also how other people's bodies are working in certain situations. And with that knowledge, you can then start to think, well, that's how my training has led me to be now, and that's probably how I want to be in the future. And then we can start tailoring your training to try and get to what you need to do to achieve whatever it is that you need to achieve. So if you're interested in coming down to a class, just come along, book on, team up. Everybody is welcome. And yeah, if you like this sort of content, let me know in the comments below.